Hey, how's it going? It's HonestlySarcastc with the Hyperloops. As most of you guys know by now, I ended up taking down the North American Continental Championship for Star Wars Destiny. So I kind of wanted to go over some different things about Gencon as a whole, the event, as a solo person, because you've probably already seen our group vee-log, as I like to call it, and I think they'll continue to call it vee-logs to make fun of me till the end of time, because I didn't know it was pronounced vlog. So anyways, so we travel into Gencon. We all get up on the same flight in. Flight outs, we went completely separately. Mike needed to be back early, and I was a lazy bum and didn't start searching until like a month before, primarily because I just didn't know if I'd be able to go or not. I run a couple businesses, and if stuff gets crazy busy or there's some stuff that goes bad, there's nothing I can do as far as like going to events. So even like Nova next week, about a week and a half away, I really just don't know if I can actually make it or not. So in general, so we get there, we get to the hotel. Hotel doesn't have our rooms ready. We're like, what the heck? We all have the $500 cash event run by Arthur Kelly. I don't remember the exact name it was placed under, but we're going to call him the X-Wars guy. So Arthur, the X-Wars guy, has the event at 4. So we're like at the hotel, I think noontime, waiting. We try to ask, when the room think will be ready. They say, maybe like half hour, but obviously they can't guarantee anything. They just want to give us an amount of time so that we'll wait. But yeah, so we wait about half an hour, 45 minutes, nothing. Then we just decide, let's go eat and then come back and see if it's ready. So we go to Steak and Shake, because that's all I've been talking about for a long time. And the misnomer here is that the reason I like Steak and Shake is because I'm really cheap, like insanely cheap. And Steak and Shake will, decent sized burger for $4 and a $3 milkshake. If you get one of the more advanced milkshakes, it's a little under $4. And if you go during happy hour, then half price. It's too perfect, it's win-win. I'm very happy with milkshakes, and my nickname Pro 2 Dots is gonna have to switch to like 2 shakes, because the entire weekend I'm sitting there double fisting milkshakes. All right, guys, I love the milkshakes. So if you see me around, you want to get me a milkshake, I'll take the bribe. You can ask whatever question you want. But yeah, on a serious note, so hotel room, finally stuff gets squared away. Actually, sorry, it doesn't even get squared away. They don't have any rooms ready. They do let us leave our luggage with them. So we set up our card bags, hop into an Uber, and get to the convention. We get in. We have to go find our badges while they pick up their will call tickets. Sorry, Nick and Mike pick up their will call tickets, and I already had mine mailed to me just in case I couldn't go, so I could send it with them to sell. Anyways, so we get the stuff going, pick up the badges finally. We find the spot. We plop down, because with all the running around we had to do, and we get to the events. So Mike and Tiny, and Tiny's been a part of our group play testing for probably a month or two now. They're playtesting Rainbow versus Funkar. Tiny, I got him on the Rainbow list a while back, and he tested it. It wasn't to his style of play, so he was kind of trying to find a different reason to pretty much not run it. If he could find a reason to not run it and like run Funkar, because that was like the way he liked playing, then he was going to do that. So he was playing Mike, and Mike is just pretty much whooping his ass the entire time. So it doesn't leave a feel-good situation for Funkar, because Funkar is very slow and Rainbow is very fast. So unless Funkar gets to lock Rainbow down, Rainbow's just gonna like kind of run over Funkar. And most people haven't felt that way, but it's something you have to see and watch. Because Funkar has to play in a specific set of actions, they kind of forecast what they're planning to do, and it's much easier to play around. In general, Funkar doesn't have to like actually use the flood ability, so sometimes there's a mini fake out there. But if they were planning to use it, since they have to be showing 3 value, like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. If they don't have 3 value, they can't use it. If they have 3 value, then as the Rainbow player, we have to understand that they can just go after our hand. So we probably pitch to reroll and get rid of anything that's huge, or at least reduce their odds of getting it. But yeah, so Tiny's pretty much getting dumpstered. And in playtesting, someone's going to get dumpstered. Like very, very seldom will we all be playing multiple different decks that we feel are great, and someone's not getting thrashed. For the greater part of a few months, I was the guy thrashing people with Rainbow. Sorry, someone was being retarded, and like I stayed on that side to let them pass, and they slowed down, and I was like, what are you want from me? So then pairings go up, and I have to play Tiny round 1. I don't know if he changed his list prior to that, but it was kind of an oh shit moment where he knows he can't play Funkar versus me because he's going to just lose the round. So he whips out Rainbow, and it was a very interesting thing because I've had a lot of Rainbow mirrors, but none of them went down the same way that me and Tiny played it. There was a lot of expectations of attacking certain characters and manipulating certain dice, and it was all over the place. So I start out pretty much red hot. I bust up a couple guys, and then he gets to boundless and like rocket and like make the comeback and kill me. It looked like he was just dead in the water, but the beauty of Rainbow is that you're not dead until pretty much FN and Bala are both gone. So I lost round 1, and I was just like, wow. There were a couple points where I made misplays. I could have flanked his rocket launcher die, and I chose not to. I felt like the damage was negligible, and I didn't care. And then there was a point where I could kill his Night Sister while his rocket launcher die was showing a blink. But instead, I allowed him to actually ability to flip the die, and he ended up hitting like a 4. Or either way, he got the damage, and I didn't touch it because I wanted the additional resource so that I can continue to do more damage. But that was a huge grave error, and it started to allow him to mount the comeback because he was able to shoot off another rocket after activating FN, and there was a huge chunk of damage. So I lose that round and show my mortality. Then I end up going 4-0 for the rest and qualifying for the Friday 4 p.m. event. So fast forward, still haven't made any changes. I think me and Tiny are on the exact same list, and Mike has, I think, a 1 card difference due to preference. Might have been 2. So fast forward to the 8 p.m. event. I think I go like 1-0, maybe 2-0, and then run into another Rainbow player, this time playing guard. It kind of winds up similar to what happened with Tiny. I want to say he like got my boundless on 2 separate discards in the game. Like I think one of them came off of like a knuckler, and then the second one, like I had just played my last card or second to last card, and he cast a vibro knife, and the vibro knife pulls up discard and hits my boundless, and I was just like, wow. So I had the moment to just start go and crush back because I was behind, and that pretty much ended the game for me right there. So I lost to him. Then I still went EXO and qualified for the 1K. So the weird thing about the 1K was that Arthur had set the finals to be the same exact day, and like 2 hours start after the top 16 of the North American event. So it was essentially hedging a bet. If I didn't top at the NA event, then I could just go play the 1K. And if I failed, then yeah, if I didn't top the NA, then I go play the 1K, and if I did top the NA, then if I lost like round 1, I'd still be able to go play the 1K. But if I was doing good, which is what happened, I would just be dropping from an event, and it would have been a waste. In general, I was fine with all of that. Getting the last minute testing in to make the adjustments for things that I didn't feel right about was proper. Like there's essentially a meta shift. We found out that there was a lot of rainbow with all sorts of like variation to the deck on Thursday. On Thursday night, it kind of flip-flopped into a bunch of mono blue villain, which looked like it was a way to try to control. There was still a good chunk of rainbow, and Pomaz came a bit more out of the woodworks. But Funkar was just MIA at that point. And then Friday, a lot of rainbow disappeared. Pomaz was in full force, and Vader was floating around as well. So on Friday, I had tickets for both the noontime and the 8 o'clock, but since I had already qualified for both events, I just didn't bother. Now, in general, Arthur had a cool thing, whereas if you qualified multiple times, you would get a bye. So if you qualified twice, you would have your top 16 match as a bye, or your first round bye in the finals. So you could pretty much guarantee yourself to either be in the cash or at least in a better standing for it. From a math perspective, the EV is a little negative there. You'd rather just play out the game, but it's neither here nor there. It's something to consider, especially if you're just playing to get testing in anyways. So I thought that was cool. But I ended up selling my tickets and just decided not to play those, and I was playtesting a lot. I playtested a lot with Dusty, a gentleman we met who is connected to some of the guys we know in New Jersey, who were originally testing the whole Pomaz with Retreat. I think a couple of them went down to X-Wars in Florida with that version, and they did very well. I believe there were guys in top, at least one of them was in top 4. I don't know if multiple were, but Dusty was playing like the updated version of that, and I want to say in the 500 event he got second place. I think he was saying there may not have been a misplay, or he just started rolling like hot garbage. But Dusty's cool, he's a good player. But so we were testing, and I was playing with Vader guard, so I can get a better feel for it. I've played a lot for the Patreons one week, or but it was still it's a slightly different version. It was more combo oriented, where mine was more control based and about surviving, whereas the version I was using then was trying to back itself by price of failure and like be super aggressive and get the kill. But I ended up like beating him up and down with that, and then Rainbow, and I believe it gave him a lot of helpful reps, because he just straight crushed the 500 event. In the main event, I think he went 6-2. So stuff kind of unfortunate, but he was a good guy, and if there was another round, maybe he could have squeaked in. Who knows? But that was solid. Testings were very good. In general, I've had a ton of testing versus Pomaz Retreat Jump. If you've never played against it, I suggest trying it, because if you're not used to it, like you're gonna pretty much die. Like you will lose to not understanding how the deck works when you don't play a fast deck. It does have some drawbacks, and that's primarily that other fast decks will completely ignore Retreat, and Hyperspace Jump is much harder to use versus them. Not to mention, any of the decks running Salvage Stand will keep you off of those, because you become very resource needy, whereas the normal base Pomaz deck doesn't really need resources, or like it wants them, but you can pretty much resolve your 3 for a damage side, whereas Jump Hyperspace can't. Like if you resolve a 3, you set yourself far behind for the round, because between trying to do like planetaries, retreats, jumps, cunnings, it gets very tough. But yeah, so that was Friday. Did some testing. Go into the top 32, I think, of the event, maybe top 16. I want to say I queued up with a Vader Raider and lost. I can't recall if I won the first round and then lost the second, or just straight up lost the first round. I think it was top 32, and then me and Cuenca both won top 32, but then we both lost our top 16s. I ran into Vader Raider, which kind of looked similar to the Australian list, which I think had no holocrons, and was all about like gas, like lightsabers, you know, the bait and switches and stuff like that. He may have had holocrons, I do not know, but it was pure gas. I got damaged a bunch, and I tried to control him instead of just comboing out, and I slowly fell apart. I am not a big fan of playing against Vader, and it's not any sort of, oh my god, he's broken. No, I just don't like playing because he gets to discard a card from my hand, and for me that's huge, because every single card I kind of like dedicate to something during the round or turn. So being short one and then not being able to easily adjust, because I tend to use all 5 cards from my hand, is pretty detrimental to me. I dislike it a lot. So we go into that, and at the end of that day, I'm pretty much looking at, I've lost 3 times, which is probably more than I've lost in months, and I'm not really feeling good here. Like, I'm not switching off of Rainbow, because I still think it was the best deck in the format at the time, but I was not feeling good about where I was at, how I played some of the matches, and like what was going on. I found myself often like digging for cards that I couldn't find, or that were no longer in the deck. Would have helped, because I was just like resource needy. So I made some adjustments. I think I only changed like 2 or 3 cards, but at that point I was ready. I didn't even bother getting any testing in. I've had so much testing with Rainbow that I already kind of knew where I was shifting stuff. It would. I don't know if anyone's ever played any of those like mech games where you can just like switch out like the arm parts of the blaster, or like the feet with the boosters. But if you ever play those games, then like you kind of know what I'm talking about, where you've had so much play and experience with it that when you're looking for a minor adjustment, you kind of know exactly what to do with it. So I can just change a card or two and then have the deck play just differently enough where I feel comfortable, and I don't need to like retest a bunch of times. So I made the minor adjustments that I felt would be better for the Rainbow and Vader match. Inherently, I also weakened my Pull Maz match just a smidgen, and luckily that didn't cause me any losses in the Pull Maz matches, but it did make everything a bit more scarier, because I didn't have as many fallback plans. Like, imagine you're playing the deck and then you just decide to take out all the redeploys and switch them with other weapons. And you pretty much know at that point that if your guy dies, you're losing everything you've built up. So it's kind of similar to that. I was taking out like a couple pieces of stronger removal for more situational removal that was cheap, or cheaper, or didn't require like a specific guy to be alive. So made those adjustments, and then Saturday morning we're hanging out at the table for the event. I'm pretty locked in. I'm like happy with my list. I'm looking through it, trying to see if there's any last minute adjustments after I write the deck list in, and I decide that I hate one specific card that I've hated for a very long time, and Mike sold me on it. He would use it on me, and I would be like crap afraid every time he used it, because we'd be going into round 3, and it was a volatile situation. I decided that every time I tried to play it, felt like the worst card ever. So I took it out and put in a duplicate of another card that I felt was very similar, without trying to get the details of the card, just because of the deck list stuff. But most people already know that I ran a Vibro knife over Vibro Knuckler, and my reasoning was pretty much just that I'm not going to pay that resource for Knuckler, based on the way I play and the way I do things. So I'd rather just have a knife instead, because it costs 1 less. and it is a little worse as far as like re-rolling, but it had a resource side, so I could benefit from that in tougher situations where I need the resource. But I would be giving up like the round 3 chains on Knuckler, and I was perfectly okay with that. There was a point in the event where that might have even cost me a game, because I couldn't cycle from a 3 into a 3. I had to cycle from a 3 into a 2 and then go back into a 3 if I wanted to do it off of ambush triggers. So things might change, but it was interesting nonetheless. So we go into the event, or sorry, not at the event yet. So we have a gentleman named Steven Calomino. He's been hanging out with me since Thursday. I had like talked to him. He was playing Leia Mothma. I may have said this in one of the videos, but I made a few videos that didn't end up getting posted. So he's hanging out, and I got him on rainbows, rainbow 9s, and before the event, I was like, I was just talking to him about stuff, and I realized I had never gave him the list, so I offered to check through his deck and make the adjustments for him. And so I go through it, and I'm just like, what is this? And I like the Aftermath tech we were on, because of all the 3 character decks. He had those on him, so we got him to put those in with logistics and enrage, because the theory was that we're going to need money, and if you're expecting to play against Funkar, like, you can't be resource starved. If Funkar disappears, you can play the game with less resources, but the current theory was that you have to be concerned with mono blue villain playing Abandon All Hope and taking your resources, and you need to kind of recover from that. And the only way to do that was both logistics and enrage, because Aftermath wasn't going to do it there. So we did that, made the adjustments, and then I'm looking through his deck, and he has award ceremonies in there. And anyone that knows me knows I love me some award ceremony. It's ghetto boundless, and it really only works like the first couple rounds, and 3 cards isn't a lot, but it sets up lots of chains. So especially with Aftermath, where we can draw 3 and then find it and then put it in play, it gives us some hope for that, and like re-rolls and fixing stuff. So I'm looking through the list, and I'm like, man, he just might have sold me on award ceremony. Like, I don't see a single problem with this list after we made the adjustments. And I'm like, dude, I can't even figure what this out. Like, I think he just sold me. So I'm looking through my list, and then I find out the card that he cut for it. It was Friends in Low Places. There's a lot of people who don't like that card, and you guys are crazy. And yeah, so I immediately gave up on the award ceremony plan. I tried so hard to run it, but not in that spot. So gave it back, talked about it for a bit. I just couldn't do it. I was not willing to do it. But I guess Steven was telling me that throughout the event, the award ceremonies were super clutch. Because in one of the rounds, he award ceremonied into award ceremony, and I guess then he may have found a boundless. So he drew 11 cards that round, and that it is kind of obscene at that point. So I may try one, and see how it is as an additional ghetto boundless, especially since the way I play is kind of aggressive, and I would like something like that. But it's neither here nor there. Trying to fit that in is going to be tough, though. So he plays that. He top 16s also, which I thought was friggin' amazing, because we, talking to a dude, he's just hanging out. Never knew this guy before. Changed his life. Top 16, baby. Speaking of top 16, they had messed up a pairing prior to the start of it, and it was like Nick Obi and somebody else's match. Nick Obi, I think, was originally supposed to play against Logan. So we let them know, and I guess they fixed that. But they also messed up, I think, another match. So Steven was supposed to be playing against a Vader deck, and he somehow ended up playing against a Poe deck, which was kind of weird. I think the end result for the top 8, or top 4, didn't change much based on that. But it did switch around the pairings a little bit, because things could have been altered instead of that. Because who was it? So someone else played against the Vader deck, and he had to play against Poe. And I think it was supposed to be like Poe v Poe, and then Vader versus Rainbow. And instead, we somehow ended up with Poe beating out Rainbow, and then I think Poe beating out Vader Guard. Because I know Mike played against Vader Raider and beat that. So it's pretty imperative, guys, to make sure you look at your standings and know how tournament bracket works, as far as like 1 plays 8, 2 plays 7, 3 plays 6, and 5 plays 4, and then it branches out to like 16 and whatnot. You just add in the additionals. But it's really huge to know that differential, because if you get that bad pairing, or like let's say you go in, you should be able to like go to sleep knowing who you're playing against. Maybe not what exactly they're playing, but you should know who. And you wake up the next morning and things changed, like you got to figure that out, because it can alter things. So like that in an alternate universe, if that was, let's say that was indeed incorrect and it was adjusted properly, I may not be the champion. I might not be playing Mike in the finals. It could be somebody else completely. So thankfully I'm not in that alternate universe, but whatevs. But yeah, no, like overall, I thought it was great to be able to, jam with people, meet people I've been talking to online, pretty much all the cool stuff. I wish I had time to really like sit down, go to dinner with some of them. We did go to dinner with Andrew Cox and Edgar Martinez, and a few other people. And Mike kind of talked about that. That was probably the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And I kind of feel like Edgar, who ended up, covering, needs to get some coaching lessons, because I owe that man something. We did get him a Gencon badge that was sold out. My top 16 opponent, Ira, had to leave for the flight, so he let me snag his badge and swing it over to them so that he could get the person in who couldn't get the ticket. But either way, that entire experience was cool. Reflex / Edgar / is Andrew Cox and Edgar Martinez. I don't know if they got you on Discord yet, but you're a great guy, my friend. So are all of your friends and everyone else that I met. So that was actually after making top 16, which was pretty much a fairy tale ending for our group. So I go home that night, or go to the hotel that night, and I'm kind of nervous, like super nervous. I have to play Ira. I had already played him once, and I know he plays the matchup very aggressively and very well. And I dislike being the control player in that mirror match. I'd much rather be the aggressive guy and push them onto the back foot and have them try to make a comeback, which isn't possible because I think his version was better for the mirror. I have no idea how the hell he got through other matches that were hard based on what he had in his list, but he did it. He 7-0'd, and then he went and did something else for his 8th round and just didn't care because he was already in. So I'm like completely off my rocker having to play him, and I didn't sleep well. I woke up early. I was trying to think about the match the whole time, how I'm going to try to combat it. I had a best 2 out of 3, so maybe I YOLO the first round, and if that works, then I decide whether to continue or not. But if it doesn't work, then I was going to be digging myself like a ginormous hole. So we end up playing, and I do not remember who won the first game. I just know that we ended up 1-1 after some crazy stuff. The first round, I want to say I did a bunch of damage, kept him off a 3-drop weapon, and was way ahead. But he got to boundless twice. He got to boundless that game, and then I think I ran into a Force Illusions, and I couldn't really get around it easily, and I think I wasted my whole round because of that. He mounted a huge comeback and ended up beating me. And I think the next game, I want to say I obliterated his board. And then game 3 we didn't end up doing because the rest of the top 16 was finishing, and he had already declared the intention to scoop, so that there wouldn't be any like complications or backlash or like thoughts of collusion going on with anything. So then I have a top 8 match versus Tiny, and like Tiny has not had nearly as many reps with the deck. I learned that the first time we played. Like as far as the mirror is concerned, I don't think he knows the small intricacies of it, and it kind of reared its ugly head a couple times. Maybe he was tired, or like just got into the complacent of testing because we tested so much, but he was playing very sloppy. It's kind of stuff I don't expect him to see. Like I think if he was on Funkar, he would never play nearly as sloppy because he's just so used to it. He knows the matchup, he knows how to do the stuff. But in our Rainbow Mirror, like there was a vast difference, and I ended up beating him 2-0. I want to say in the first game I like double boundlessed round 1, and like just shot off tons and tons of damage, and then ended up finishing up. And then I think in round 2 I think I did boundless in the second round, and he didn't have one in sight. The match is very interesting though, because there's a lot of fear, but like Night Sister is super important in that mirror, because it's pretty much at any point if you don't claim, you can adjust and screw them up. That's what happened. He ended up claiming early in the first round, and it was like, what? Like I hadn't even finished like rolling my guys in, and he just claimed to do damage and have the battle go for the next round. And then as soon as I started doing a bunch of stuff, he realized that was like a ginormous mistake. I did the same thing to Mike in the finals. He did not claim though, and I was just like, man, this guy's just passing for no reason, da-da-da. And then as soon as I spiked my Night Sister up to 6, he's like, I'll activate my Night Sister, and he like flipped his damage, his FNDI to a 1 damage, and he started to mount his comeback. It was pro level stuff right there from Mike. But Mike had also misstepped and didn't cast Enrage as his first action when I won the battlefield, when I won the die roll and gave him the battlefield. So it let me friends in low places his hand and take the Enrage, and he was sitting on 2-3 drops. So he pretty much could not get a 3-drop down because I controlled his resource. Then after I did the Night Sister thing and he killed it, he was able to step up much better, and actually like be able to recover a bit. He was still dug in a hole that was pretty large because my boundless is just put too much damage. Like at the end of round 1, my Night Sister was dead, and my Bala had like a hit, and both his Bala and Night Sister were dead. So he was living on just FN, and he did his best to make the comeback, but it couldn't happen. Like it's so weird that these games can be off by just a small margin of things like just not casting your Enrage at the beginning, and then you can't afford your 3 drops, especially if your dice are not rolling well and your opponent just goes and controls them with like doubts, or he doesn't like you, flanks, etc., isolations. But it was super surreal that it was me and him in the finals, and I was ecstatic. I didn't care if I won or lost. This is my homeboy. He was testing with me the whole time. He kept me leveled when I was just like out of my mind at that point because I had lost 3 times. And I was having like a mental breakdown of whether to play, if Rainbow's the right decision, if Night Sister's the right decision. There were just so many decks being played that Royal Guard was a better option for, but it completely changes the way the deck is run. And I was going to make the adjustment, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to it. There were just so many times where in events I was put in a horribly bad situation due to round 1 like God rolls or round 1 crazy stuff going down, and Night Sister was always there to help me climb out of that hole. So I never made the adjustment. He kept me grounded and said not to worry about it. Like, it happens, you know. But yeah, the squad life was great. I attempted to scoop to have him get the flight and all that stuff, and I kind of made that well known at the beginning with one of the judges. But what ended up happening is when I rolled that last C6 to get the damage, it immediately started being like, oh, I'm the champion, I've got like congratulation messages on the Discord, and it like people made that last move for me when I really wasn't prepared to, because I don't know if I can actually go to Worlds. Oops, sorry about that adjusting, I never noticed it. I do not know if I can actually go to Worlds or not. So I was just trying to see if I can give him the win, and it kind of became too late for that. So I hope if there's some sort of issue, I can actually give him the flight in the hotel room, because I wasn't planning to take it. I was also going to Nova, so I kind of felt like there was a chance I could possibly take down Nova and get the same stuff. And even then, I don't know if I'd be able to go to Worlds. But I guess we'll kind of just see how it goes, because me and Mike were trying to do a pre-split, and it just kind of, stuff kind of got messy, because like the people that could make that decision on whether I could give it to them weren't there, so it kind of became a we'll have to ask them thing. And I just hope that that stuff doesn't end up going to waste, because I have to stay there for my stores. But that was pretty much the breakdown for the weekend and the top 16. I guess I should have done this first, but through Swiss, I played a bunch of great people, and I want to let you know that like how you talk and treat people is definitely a huge difference. For big tournaments like that. And I don't mean this as some sort of scam or scheme or setup or anything, but like, so people that do the prizing knew that the people who placed top third were going to get damage tokens. And I want to say it might have been either top 16 or top 32 or something that got like the deck boxes. So the important thing there was that every time so my first round opponent, I'm playing him. He's playing Pomaz. I want to say his Reddit name is Sertosalot. Great guy. Someone walked up, gave him his like top 32 thing for X-Wing. I guess he had already top 32 for Imperial Assault. Playing Pomaz. He did some crazy stuff to me, and I ended up pulling out a win right at the end. Because I like claimed and then rocketed to kill the Maz who was holding like a DO-44. But so like him, I didn't really have to worry about. He was gonna play it out and try to get into the top. My second round opponent was I believe Logan Mack, who it also went 7-1 in top 16. He's part of the Nerf Herders and was part of the crew running the events with the Han Solo like matting cards. Great guy. I ended up beating him on the back of keeping him off the ability to play hyperspace jump through like via disrupt, and him resolving 3 damage for a resource. And so like him, I didn't really have to worry about. But then like my third and fourth round opponents, I want to say one was on Han Rey and the other one was on Qui-Gon Rey. Talking to them and letting them know about like the top third, in case they end up going on a losing streak, is super important because of tiebreakers. We were playing Swiss -1, which means like the event was supposed to be 9 rounds based on Swiss numbers, but it was 8. So the strength of schedule breakers are going to be huge. Letting people know that if they just stick it out through the 8 rounds, there's a pretty good shot for them to get the damage tokens is huge, because if they went 4-4 based on I think the numbers, based on the number of drops and like finishing records. 5 and 3 was auto to get the tokens, and I think it was pretty good odds to get the tokens as 4 and 4 or something like that. Because we lost, I want to say we lost like 100 people by the end of the third round. Meaning there wasn't going to be a ton of people finishing up, so you could have worse records over time and still get in that top third to be able to get the damage tokens, which I think people are selling for like $80 right now. So like I made sure to let them know about that. I let them know about the cool stuff for finishing out. And you know, I don't know that got them to stay through the 8 rounds, but maybe it might have. It might have gone towards me having the second best tiebreaker going into the 7th and 8th rounds. Let's see, the next opponent, I think I played, I can't even remember something. It was like Phasmagard. Like, I always made sure to talk to the people, and, you know, let them know I'm going to try to keep the breaker up if I beat them, or whether I lost or whatever. And it's, oh, Jesus. Got all them bumps. Sorry, guys. It is a huge thing for strength of schedule events, is to talk to your opponents and, like, let them know what's going on. Because even if it was like a guy, you know, someone that was a weaker player with a starter deck, maybe you can tell them some tricks that they'll learn and go into the next round and like win with. Some people are going to be very upset when they lose, but a lot of people I've noticed are very good in this game, and like good people, sorry. And like we're all trying to learn and do better. So like just talking to people will sometimes get you further along or ahead. I can't guarantee that, you know, my talks did anything at all, but I did have a very high tiebreaker. It probably helps that 3 of the people I played were, you know, in the top 16, and one of them was a person I played in the second round. But being nice to people and talking can go a long way, and all of it's part of a tournament. Like, you know, the way you treat people, the way you go about doing stuff, just talking with people in general, it all matters. Especially at the end, because if I had bad tiebreakers, I would have been one of the 40 people that missed, and there's no way I was going to win. But there probably would have been at that point a bigger fire under my butt to win, because once I hit round 7 and I was already 6-0 and had the crazy tiebreaker, like everything was off. I felt like I was perfectly fine. If I drop one game, win the other, I'm auto win. If I drop both games, they were like amazing odds I was in. When I saw the 8th round, I had the second highest tiebreaker still by like 9 points or 7 points or something like that, which I was pretty locked in at that point to squeak in. Pretty much no matter like what happened outside of some insane stuff. And I ended up losing to Taxter, or Nick Obi, who played phenomenally, by the way. He was playing Phasma, and he was at a point where he could kill my FN. And I was trying to get him to kill it so that I could redeploy over to Bala. And he just started re-rolling his additional dice to get all the extra damage in. And I want to say he ended up skipping out on killing FN that round. Whereas if I had just chosen to re-roll my FN dice that were out, like the FN and the upgrades, and I hit additional damage, I would have forced him to kill my FN and then switch the redeploys over. But I didn't do that. And that was very good of him to take advantage of me trying not to. But he got in, he deserved it. He topped 4 like a boss. But yeah, like, I don't know, talking to people and treating them well is definitely a huge thing. And I suggest doing it, especially if you don't want to have to be the people that go XO or X1 at an event. Every last thing, there's luck involved with your scheduling. There's luck involved with like small wins and losses, or close wins and losses, and you just got to try to make and take advantage of everything you can to try to get yourself in those positions. Because if you don't, you're just going to be the person who got, you know, 17th, 18th place and just barely missed out. Who knows what could happen? But this is pretty much over. Trying to think. I'll be releasing my old TTS S2 deck and the Artificery deck, which I asked to be held out. when I was given the option to not have it, to whether I wanted it published or not. So I will get in touch with them to let them know that they can post that list now, and I'm gonna post it and write a mini article for the next couple days. But that was the gist of it. This is my tournament report, kinda. It's a jank sauce video, and HonestlySarcastc reporting out. Hyperloops, baby. Hyperloops.